take it. Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll help myself. Yeah. Thank you.
That's always the best thing to do. That's by the way. I have just some words.
Oh, wow. This is cool. I got to get a picture of this little menu.
Guten Abend miteinander. Wir sind hier am Tischgespräch Bank Spezial das Mal. Das ist nicht wie sonst immer am Mittwoch. Heute haben wir zwei Gäste. Ein amerikanischer Autor, der J.Ryan Stradal, wird befragt von der Gesa Schneider vom Literaturhaus Zürich. Das geht um sein Buch und der Witz von dem ist ja, es ist ein Buch über Gastronomie, über Küche, Kitchens of the Great Midwest. Ich will mir jetzt jegliche Kommentare zu den gestrigen Wahlen und zu dem, wie die im Mittleren Westen gewählt haben, verklemmen. Aber in dem Sinn kann ich gerade das Wort übergeben, der Gesa Schneider. Das Ganze, wie angekündigt, findet auf Englisch statt.
And we will have a bit of time to talk together. And first of all, I would like to ask you, because otherwise it will stand like an elephant in the room. How do you feel after this crazy night? Did you sleep at all?
No. I feel like dismayed that my home region, not my home state of Minnesota, thank God,
Very
but
small margin.
yeah, right. I know. But the fact that so many people where I'm from were bamboozled by this guy is discouraging to me. So. To see this happen, not only with this particular leader, but to see all three branches of government
in the hands of
right under his influence.
So, but it's people like us who voted for him. I mean, white middle class people, white
Right.
women and white men.
Lots of white women, yeah. It's really frightening that many of them had just an irrational hatred for Hillary Clinton. And I saw this with my stepmother. Just can't stand her. Can't even explain why. There's just some kind of visceral dislike. And you can chalk it up to maybe a lot of things. Maybe it's sexism. Maybe it's, 30 years of experience with this woman, 30 years to build up an emotional case against her. But I felt like an awful lot of people in the U.S. weren't necessarily voting for Trump; they were voting against Hillary, and that really depresses me because there's been few presidential candidates that have been more qualified than her.
We will perhaps allow later a few questions. Let's
Sure.
try to talk about the book, your book, which is actually a great read. It's at the same time heartwarming and heartbreaking, and I really like this character, Eva, even if she's not likable in a classical sense somehow. But before starting, can you tell us a bit more about the Midwest? As Europeans, we know the West Coast and the East Coast. We know New York. We know a little bit about Los Angeles. Perhaps if we advanced Chicago and Miami, but otherwise, it's like this blind spot.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I chose to write about it. Not a lot of people write about my home region, or at least not a lot of people write about it in a way that I think is as sensitive or as insightful or empathetic as I would like. I mean, certainly we've been the butt of jokes a lot. And our food, you know, I think one of the reasons I wrote about Midwestern food was, well, not because it's underrated. I think it's probably properly rated. But there's a lot about the food that makes that region distinct. You know, I cover some of the ingredients in the book, like venison, like dessert bars, like this chicken wild rice casserole that's on the menu here. We would call it a hot dish. And also things that I just barely touch on in the book, like Jell-O salads, like the general concept of a salad being something that probably doesn't contain vegetables at all. It's like I grew up with plenty of salads that were just mixtures of meat and cheese. That sounds all right, doesn't it? I mean, cold, it's called a salad. Hot, it's called a hot dish. Same stuff. Lots of ham. We have lots of ham. My state invented Spam. I don't know if you have that here. You're lucky. It's the worst thing to happen to ham. But in any case,
where is Minnesota?
Oh, Minnesota is in the northern central part of the Midwest. It borders Canada. It tends to be one of the more politically liberal states. However, we can be a little strange, too. We elected the professional wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura for our governor for one term. He actually turned out pretty good, but I think his heart was in the right place, and I think he realized he was overwhelmed, and he surrounded himself by smart people once he was in office. I don't have faith in our current national leader to do the same. But growing up in Minnesota was really cool. There's no shortage of German culture there. Certainly, a lot of the surnames in my book throughout the book are, German. And probably the best restaurant in my hometown is one called Bierstube. So I grew up eating. I'll probably butcher the word. I grew up eating Spätzle. As well, yeah,
okay.
Exactly,
you
and
have that here?
right.
So I will summarize very quickly in German your book. Say a few words about you, and we're going to hear a first section that you will read. Also es geht um ein Leben, das erzählt wird aus vielen verschiedenen Perspektiven, um Eva Torvald, die eben diesen einzigartigen Geschmackssinn hat und dann später im Leben ein Pop-up-Restaurant eröffnet, das so erfolgreich ist und gleichzeitig so geheimnisvoll, dass man dann Jahre im Voraus sich schon auf eine geheime Liste setzen muss und dann irgendwann einen obskuren Anruf bekommt und dann an einem auch wiederum obskuren Ort essen darf. Das ist aber nur ein ganz kleiner Teil der Geschichte. Es wird aus vielen, also das Buch ist übersetzt von Anna-Nina Kroll und es ist ein Debüt, das heißt ein erstes Buch vom Autor. Es ist erzählt aus der Sicht des Vaters, der Tante, von einem Verehrer, einer Konkurrentin und entstanden ist eine Art melancholischer Page-Turner, kein Shaker, ein Page-Turner, der sowohl also die Zutaten und die Zufälle beschreibt, die das Leben bestimmen. Und es lohnt sich sehr, das zu lesen. Es ist auch ganz viele Stränge werden aufgenommen, werden auch nicht immer zu Ende erzählt und es bleibt einem wirklich in Erinnerung haften. There are lots of stories. There are some stories I would say you don't forget, and this story is one of them. This story you tell in this book. He grew up in Minnesota, as you already said. You wrote for something I read. You wrote also for TV shows. For wrestling or truck something?
Oh yeah, Ice Road Truckers.
Okay.
Yeah. Do they have that here?
No, but we can see it on some TV.
Yeah.
Ice Road Truckers.
Right.
And he studied film, television, and in Northwestern University. He wrote lots of short stories. Now he lives in Los Angeles, and this is your first book. So let's hear a bit about how Eva came to life.
Sure. Well, early on, I decided to write a book set within the culinary world of the upper Midwest in Minnesota, specifically where I'm from. And I thought, how am I going to tell this story? I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles for 17 years, and I'm constantly ending up at parties where everyone knows the host, but no one knows each other. And so I'm constantly having conversations with the people next to me, like, how do you know Brad and Linda? You know, and that's the main icebreaker at the party, is how does everyone know Brad and Linda? So I thought, I'm going to write a book about how everyone knows Brad and Linda. And it's going to be about a dinner party and how that dinner party got populated. Well, really early on into fleshing out that concept, before I even started writing, I thought, oh, I don't know. I think the chef is really interesting. I think I really want to center around the chef and how all these people not only got to meet the chef, but introduced an ingredient to them that gets served in a meal. So then I thought, oh, well, okay, I've got to write a menu for a dinner. So a lot goes into that. First of all, I had to think of the time of year the dinner would happen, because the seasonality, for lack of a better term, the in-season attributes of the ingredients were extremely important. I wanted to make sure that if this was an Epicurean meal, that people are going to charge $5,000 to attend, $1,000 per course. It had better be fresh, at the very least. So I sat down with two chefs that I know, or I emailed them in one case and said, hey, let's talk about what's in season in the upper Midwest and late summer, early fall. And what are some flavor pairings that I can put together over 5 courses that'll cover a range of culinary experiences in one meal, and also cover a range of Midwestern food, everything from venison to bars to sweet corn, all in one meal. So I started with the menu, and then I went backwards and populated each chapter with a separate ingredient that was in this menu that I'd written. So once the menu was down, I knew what ingredients were in it, and I just started writing the book. I wrote it completely out of order. I just woke up every day and wrote whatever ingredient I felt like writing. And I knew that a different person had to introduce each ingredient to Eva, my chef. And so it became very easy to tell Eva's life story through these ingredients that come into her life. So the book is, in a way, a recipe for a meal, but also a recipe for a human being.
Very good.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. Would you like me to read a little?
Yes, please.
Excellent.
You
Okay.
want to have the-
Oh, no. Oh,
As
yeah,
you wish.
sure. Okay.
Perhaps it's easier.
Yeah. I'm going to read from the very beginning where Eva's parents meet each other. Lars Torvald loved 2 women. That was it, he thought in passing, while he sat on the cold concrete steps of his apartment building. Perhaps he would have loved more than 2, but it just didn't seem like things were going to work out like that. Now that morning, while defying a doctor's orders by pureeing a braised pork shoulder, Lars stared out the window at the snow on the roof of the Happy Chef restaurant across the highway and sang a love song to one of those 2 girls, his baby daughter, while she slept on the living room rug. He was singing a Beatles song, replacing the name of the girl in the tune with the name of the girl in the room. Now, Lars hadn't told a woman, I love you, until he was 28. He didn't lose his virginity until he was 28 either. He did have his first kiss when he was 21, but that woman quit returning his calls about a week later. Now, Lars blamed his sorry luck with women on his lack of teenage romance, and he blamed his lack of teenage romance on the fact that he was the worst smelling kid in his grade every year. Yep, starting around age 12, he stank like the floor of a fish market every Christmas. And even when he didn't smell terrible, the other kids acted like he did, because that's what kids do. Fish boy, they called him, year-round, and it was all the fault of an old Swedish woman named Dorothy Seaborg. Now, on a December afternoon in 1974, Dorothy Seaborg of Duluth, Minnesota, slipped on the ice and broke her hip, walking to her mailbox, disrupting the supply line of lutefisk for Sunday Advent dinners at St. Olaf's Lutheran Church. Okay, quick aside, who here has had or knows about lutefisk? This is the luckiest room in Europe. Now, Gustav Torvald of Duluth's Gustav and Sons Bakery, and one of the most conspicuous Norwegians between Cloquet and Two Harbors, well, he told everyone in St. Olave's Fellowship Hall that there would be no break in lutefisk continuity. His family would step in and carry on this brutal Scandinavian tradition for the benefit of the entire Twin Ports region. Now, never mind that neither Gustav, his wife Aline, nor any of their children had ever even seen a live whitefish before, much less pound it, dried it, soaked it in lye, re-soaked it in cold water, or done the careful cooking required to make something that, when perfectly prepared, looks like jellied smog and smells like boiled aquarium water. Now, since everyone in the house was equally unqualified for the job, the work fell to Lars, age 12, and his younger brother Jarl, age 10, skipping 8-year-old Sigmund, but only because Sigmund actually liked the stuff. If Lars and Jarl don't eat any, if Lars and Jarl don't like it, they won't eat any, and it'll eliminate loss and breakage, their father said. Now, well, Aline had to be satisfied with her husband's reasoning. She still thought it was a mean thing to do to their young sons. Theirs was a mixed-race marriage between a Norwegian and a Dane. So therefore, everything that was culturally important to one but not the other was given a free pass and critiqued only in unmixed company. Now, years of intimate contact with his cultural heritage failed to evolve Lars's and Jarl's cultural sensibilities. Now, Jarl, who still ate his own snot, still preferred the taste of boogers to lutefisk, being that the color and the consistency are the same. Lars, meanwhile, was stumped by the old Scandinavian women who walked up to him in church and said, "Any young man who makes lutefisk like you is going to be quite a hit with the ladies." Lars felt that lutefisk skills usually inspired revulsion, or at best, indifference among prospective dates. In any case, even girls who claimed that they liked lutefisk didn't want to smell it when they weren't eating it, and Lars couldn't give them much of a choice. So the once anticipated holiday season had become for Lars a cruel month of stench and rejection. And thanks to the mean boys at school, the social effects lingered long after everyone's desiccated Christmas trees had been abandoned to the curbside. Now, by the time Lars was 18, he had unintentionally mastered the tragic hobby of lutefisk preparation, and its potency was skyrocketing. Lutherans were driving from as far away as Fergus Falls to eat the Torvald lutefisk, and there wasn't an attractive young woman among any of them. And as if to mock him further every year, his dad would shove a forkful of the crap in his face every Christmas. "Just a bite. Your ancestors ate this to survive the long winters." "And how did they survive lutefisk?" Lars asked once. "Take some pride in your work, son," Gustav said, and took away Lars's lefse in punishment. Now, in 1978, Lars graduated from high school and got the heck out of Duluth. His grades could have gotten him into a nice Lutheran school like Gustavus Adolphus or Augsburg, but Lars wanted to be a chef, and he didn't see what good college would do him other than to delay that goal by 4 years. So he moved down to the Twin Cities, looking for kitchen work and a girlfriend in whatever order, only insisting that neither one ask him to make lutefisk. Now, that left a lot more options open than his dad predicted. By October 1987, as his home state was enraptured by the Minnesota Twins winning their first World Series ever, Lars had earned a job at Hutmacher's, a trendy lakeside bistro that attracted big celebrities like meteorologists and state senators and local pro athletes. It had been said for years a Twins player could enjoy his prime rib at Hutmacher's unremarked and unmolested, but by the time the Twins were world champions, they were turning the night shift into an upbeat party. And it was amid this happy circumstance of a long-suffering sports team's success that the strange joy of it all spread through the restaurant. And Cynthia Hargreaves, the smartest waitress on staff, she gave the best wine pairing advice. Well, she seemed to take an interest in Lars. Now, by this time, Lars was 28, growing a pale, hairy inner tube around his waist, and already going bald. Now, even though Cynthia had an overbite in the shakes. She was 6 feet tall and beautiful, and not like a statue or a perfume advertisement, but in a realistic way, like how a truck or a pizza is beautiful in the moment you want it most. This, to Lars, made her feel approachable. Thank you.
So, did you learn that all by heart, or is it because you've read it so many times that you just know it, or do you have crazy memory skills?
I practice a lot, but I've also read it a lot,
Okay.
and it's one of my favorite things to read. Yeah, I love reading the first chapter of this book, so it's
that's
easy to remember.
impressive. Well, that's
Yeah,
true.
just like you remember the names of people you love better than the people you don't, I think. So maybe. So I feel like, this was easy for me to remember because I feel very close to it.
Did you so tell us what is this strange thing about lutefisk? What is this?
Oh yeah, well, I've heard from people in Norway. I have a few distant relatives there. That lutefisk, it's this strange, Scandinavian tradition, and I tried to describe it as fairly as I could. So if anyone wanted to try it, they're warned. But it's my impression from people in Norway that they don't eat it there very often. They don't like it. It's kind of gross. But Minnesotans, being in large part, having Scandinavian heritage, either from Denmark, Norway, or Sweden, 3 places where lutefisk is eaten, well, they love it. Particularly old Norwegian men, who are usually the lutefisk enforcers in a family. My great-grandfather was, and he was one. I had to eat this every Christmas till I was about 6. And I didn't have to have it again until I was researching this book. And I thought, I'd better buy it. So I know what the heck I'm talking about.
Why is it so, I don't know, so dislikable?
It just basically tastes like how fish smells, but like how fishy fish smells.
Okay.
It really does smell like boiled aquarium water. And the Swedes, the Norwegians just seem to kind of eat it straight up or with like a little butter on it. The Swedes do what they always do, and that's drown it in a white cream sauce.
Okay.
And I much prefer that. The Swedish variant of lutefisk at least tries to mask the flavor. They make an effort. So, yeah. Well, the Norwegians are just like, have it straight, no chaser, Yeah. And it's one of those culinary traditions that I don't think any other culture is going to co-opt or steal. It's very safe within the Scandinavian tradition. But like I said, I think it's more celebrated by people who have left Scandinavia and are attempting to hold on to their heritage, as opposed to people who actually live there, who generally don't eat it.
So in the beginning, you start by reading or writing or saying that Lars loves 2 women. Can you tell us a bit more about one we meet in the part you read aloud?
Yeah.
So who are these 2 women?
Well, the one you meet was Cynthia, and the other one, the baby that's referred to, is his daughter Eva. And Eva grows up to become a chef. Born in these simple circumstances in Minnesota, rises up to become the $5,000 a plate chef of the most popular and difficult to obtain restaurant reservation in the world. And I thought, how fun would that be if that person came from Minnesota? It's as likely as anywhere. So it was fun to talk about her parents' humble upbringings, and our parents met in this restaurant during this baseball team's rare success, and the sommelier and the chef met. And so, she doesn't know it. Slight spoiler alert. She's raised by other people besides her parents, but she very much takes on some of their interests and attributes. She very much is the daughter of a sommelier and a chef.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil the book. That definitely not. But still, Eva is somehow on every page, even if she's not. She plays a role, but then she also has a sort of a chapter in the book.
Yes, she does. She has one point of view chapter. Since, like I said before, most chapters are from the points of view of people in Eva's life, who kind of assemble to tell Eva's story from their own points of view. Eva does get a seat at the table. We hear from her when she's 10 years old, the day before her 11th birthday. And Gesa, would you like to read it a little?
Oh, yeah. I just want to introduce her shortly, but now before I prepared the page, and now it's gone, but it will reappear.
Oh, you're very close.
I am, huh?
Yeah. Oh wait, no, it's
it's a
paginated
bit
just a little bit different. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, she's 10 und sie hat diese unglaubliche Leidenschaft entwickelt für Chili. Und ich lese nur eine Seite vor, dass Sie etwas aus der Übersetzung hören. Ich bin keine professionelle Vorleserin, aber ich lese sehr gerne vor. Chocolate Habanero. Es war 7 Uhr morgens am Tag vor ihrem 11. Geburtstag und Eva kniete in ihrer gemütlichen Lieblingsjeans hart arbeitend vor ihrem Kleiderschrank. Sie kontrollierte gerade die Feuchte ihrer Chili-Pflanzen, Hydrokultur, als ihre Mutter an die Tür klopfte. »Herein!« Eva richtete sich auf und sah Fiona an, die einen Hosenanzug in der Farbe unreifer Serrano-Chilis trug, ebenso grüne Schuhe und große silberne Kreolen. Sie sah aus wie eine kleine, breitere Hillary Clinton, mit der Haltung und der Mattheit einer Frau allerdings, die 60 Stunden die Woche arbeitet und bereits 58 davon hinter sich hat. »Was willst du denn zu deinem Geburtstag in die Schule mitnehmen?« fragte Fiona ihre Tochter. »Ich könnte nach der Arbeit noch was einkaufen, falls ich bis dahin nicht zusammengeklappt bin.« Wenn man Eva fragte, war das von allen Geburtstagstraditionen die schlimmste, dass man zu seinem eigenen Geburtstag etwas in die Schule mitbringen musste. Aber wenn sie schon die gesamte 6. Klasse durchfüttern musste, dann bitte auch mit etwas, das sie selbst gern aß. Veganes Blaubeersorbet vom New City Market, habe ich gedacht. Oh Gott, wirklich? Weißt du, was in normalem Eis drin ist, besonders im Schokoladeneis? Du hast es mir erklärt. Damit schenke ich Ihnen Lebensjahre, das ist mehr, als diese Kanalratten verdient haben. Ach, das können doch nicht alles Kanalratten sein. Was ist denn mit dieser netten Bethany Messerschmidt? Wenn es um Evas Leben ging, hatte ihre Mom die Aufmerksamkeitsspanne eines 50-Cent-Guppies. Selbst die traurig dreinblickenden Hausmeister in der Schule wussten mehr über Evas Innerstes als ihre eigenen Eltern. Immerhin hatten sie den guten Einfall gehabt, hierher nach West Des Moines, how do you say it, Des Moines, Iowa zu ziehen, um näher bei Evas coolem Onkel Dragelski und Tante Amy Jo und deren großartigen Kindern Rotko und Brack, die alle nur Brack nannten, zu sein. Bethany Messerschmidt ging auf Evas neue Schule, machte sich andauernd hinter dem Rücken anderer Leute über sie lustig und interessierte sich ganz im Gegensatz zu Randy nicht im geringsten für coole Sachen wie Essen oder Kunst oder Bücher oder coole Musik. Obwohl sie einmal gesagt hatte, Randy wäre ein heißer Typ, was total unangenehm gewesen war. Aber das Schlimmste war, dass Bethany Eva vor allen anderen eine blöde Bigfoot-Schlampe genannt hatte, als Eva ihr nach der Schule bei McDonald's keine $5 leihen wollte. Obwohl Eva Kaffee trank, 2- oder 3-mal versucht hatte, eine Zigarette zu rauchen und andere Dinge tat, die angeblich das Wachstum hemmten, war sie eher stämmig und dabei 1,70 groß. Sie konnte rein gar nichts dagegen tun. In der neuen Schule konnte sie sowieso schon niemand ausstehen, weil sie jünger und schlauer war als die anderen. Aber seit jenem Nachmittag bei McDonald's wurde sie nur noch Bigfoot genannt. Und das Schlimmste, und das war schlimmer als alles andere. Und so weiter.
Thank you.
So what was really fascinating for me also, beside the fact that each chapter can be somehow read separately, it's a whole universe, whole universe in its own, is the way you describe the atmosphere or the setting in the Midwest, also the poverty in the Midwest. Like, I don't know, when they have all these guns where they go shooting, and for us, of course, it's somehow exotic, but it's a reality.
Oh, very common. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the only man in my extended family that does not own multiple guns and motorcycles. Yeah, like at least, yeah, my dad has 7 brothers, most of whom have children, many of whom are men. I have a brother. So we're probably talking about 16 men here. All of whom, except for me, have at least one motorcycle and at least one gun. And so for them, the biggest holiday of the year wasn't Christmas or Thanksgiving, but it was the opening of deer hunting season, which is the first weekend of November, which I think is Oh, it's actually just now. I
Yes.
should have checked in to see how they did.
Yeah.
I forgot. I had other things. But yeah, typically, well, as the years have gone by and Minnesota has been subject to climate change like everywhere else in the world, there hasn't been as much snow early like there used to be. So it's been harder for them to get deer, and they're frustrated with it. But I'm not sure who they blame for that. That said, I still think that I really enjoyed that tradition of seeing all the men in my family get together and go out and hunt deer. If for only they left me alone in the house to read all weekend, and I could read books quietly without them hassling me. But
you see, I mean, you understand so well this. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, in what we get a lot of American literature or of literature in general is, I would say, the Jonathan Franzens of the world. It's some sort of an elite who writes for an elite, and here you
Right.
get somehow also this Geordie guy.
Oh,
you
yeah,
get
Geordie
an
Snow,
insight of a world. We and with lots of empathy and not at all with this distance.
Right. Jordy is about as far as you can get from like a elite East Coast Brooklynite. Yeah, he's a really simple guy, didn't go to college. He's living with his mom, and because he doesn't have a lot of other things in his life to give him purpose, one of the things he orients his life around is deer hunting, because that's something he's good at. It's something that he does every year. It gives him structure, and people value him for it. So it has an outsized importance in his life. I think at the beginning of the chapter I say, if Jordy could change one thing about his life, it would be that rifle season wouldn't overlap with bow season. And so this is the kind of person we're talking about here, where if you ask him that question, that's going to be the first thing that comes to mind. So that said, even though I have mixed feelings about the gun ownership in my family, I do have to admit there's a bit of cognitive dissonance there, because I sure like eating venison. And so I was happy when they shot a deer and they would bring it back to our garage and hang it up to bleed out over newspapers on the garage. And my grandmother would gut it, and then my dad and uncles would butcher it up and decide who gets what. Like someone always wanted the heart, someone wanted the liver, and so those organs were divided up, and people started making sausage and jerky, and it was a really cool thing to see the garage turned into a butcher shop for about a week in November. And it also made these men really happy. Like I could tell that this was important to them, and this was them being good at this was important to them. And if they were happy, I was happy.
And you have other characters like what's her name? Pat.
Oh, Pat
Pat.
Prager, yeah.
Yeah, and she's on the other side, like the woman's side, where they have all these cooking contests.
Yeah.
And it seems for me like some sort of coming from the 40s or the 50s.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it still existed or was part of, I don't know, is that...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, bake
I
offs.
know it from TV,
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, I just realized my Minnesotan is coming out. Oh, sure, yeah, yeah. Oh, gosh, no. It's funny as I talk about it. Yeah, and Pat there's a bit of my mom in Pat. And my mom grew up in this like Lutheran church basement world of, where women make spreads for every funeral and compete against each other with these baked good contests and put out recipe books every year. And I thought that this is a really particular part of Midwestern culinary life for me, is Lutheran church women. And I really wanted to write about them in a empathetic way, because I grew up around them, and my mom was one, and I felt like incorporating that aspect of Midwestern cooking into the book was important to me, because Eva starts humbly but rises to become kind of a hipster pop-up chef. And I wanted her to occupy both the world of traditional Midwestern food and the modern world that we're seeing all over the world, not just in the big cities in Europe in the U.S., but also in places like Minnesota. For example, I never saw like heirloom tomatoes delineated before in a grocery store. I didn't grow up in a Minnesota where they had avocados or where people were interested in making things that their parents didn't make. You know, people were really consistent and really boring for decades in Minnesota, and now they've evolved just like the rest of the world has. And I wanted Pat to sort of represent the world that Eva came from. And she meets Eva at a big city baked goods contest that Pat is pressured to enter because she's won her church's bake-off 5 of the last 6 years. And her friends in the small town say, "Oh, you should go to Minneapolis and enter there. You've nothing to prove here in Deer Lake anymore. Like, leave the small town and go to the big city and try your bars against that, you know, in the big city." And unbeknownst to Pat Prager, she enters a contest that's run by hipsters. And they have hipster taste, and they're not ready for something that their grandmother might have made. So perhaps except Eva, exactly.
Yeah.
Except Eva, who loves it. And I won't get to that part of the chapter just yet.
No, just the beginning. But this hipster part is really interesting because you must somehow recognize yourself in this description.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm afraid so.
It hurts, but it's good. Yeah.
It hurts so good.
Yeah.
Pat hadn't actually been to the city of Minneapolis in more than 2 years. Hold on. And as she got older, each trip down there seemed to exhaust and overwhelm her before she even got out of the car. She was just about shocked out of her shoes when she saw how much it cost to park in downtown Minneapolis, but told herself it was much safer than leaving her car on those streets. In the hotel lobby, which was very fancy and clean, if a bit spare on the decor, she didn't see many women her age, or many women who looked like her at all, and certainly no one who was carrying a glass tray of peanut butter bars covered in plastic wrap. No, Pat and her 15-year-old son Sam arrived at the registration table set up outside 2 large doors. A sign mounted on an easel read, "Petite Noisette, Best of Bake Event." Pat set her bars down on the table in front of the women at registration and said, "Hi, I'm Pat Prager, and this is my son Sam." "Okay," one of the girls said. "It's a $20 admission for guests." "What? Oh, gosh," Pat said. "I got it, Mom," Sam said, opening a surprisingly fat wallet. His mom didn't want to know. Quick aside, Sam happens to be the largest weed dealer in his high school. His mom's okay with it because he gives 10% of his proceeds to church. The girl accepted the 20 from Sam, then looked at Pat as the other girl poked the red plastic wrap on Pat's bars with her pen. "And this is your entry?" "Yes, these are my peanut butter bars." "Do you have an informational card with the recipe or ingredients?" No, I didn't know I was supposed to bring one." It's okay. Are they vegan, gluten-free, celiac, non-GMO, all of the above?" Pat looked at the girls and then at Sam. No, I don't think so." "Any of the above?" "Where did you source your ingredients from?" one of the girls asked. "Are they local?" "Yeah," Pat said. "They're from the store about a mile from my house." One of the girls at the table laughed. "Sorry," she said. Pat was so confused. "Well, they are. I maybe even still have the receipt in my purse." "Oh, no, that's fine," the girl said. "Go in. Peer voting just started, and we'll go until 8:30. Get your ballots at the red table." Now, Sam walked to the nearest table inside, where something labeled chocolate chip banana oatcakes, vegan, gluten-free, soy-free, sat on a platter next to the number 3. Pat looked at the card next to the platter. 2 cups, gluten-free oats, sourced from the organic, pesticide, and GMO-free farm of Seymour and Peony Schmidt, Faribault, Minnesota, home processed into oat flour. 1/2 cup regular oats, not processed. 1/2 cup brown sugar, homemade. Fresh unsulfured molasses stirred into organic fair trade Hawaiian cane sugar. 1/2 teaspoon ground Ceylon cinnamon, fair trade, purchased at Frogtown Community Co-op. half-cup Gela applesauce, homemade, apples sourced from McBroom Orchards, Hudson, Wisconsin, organic, GMO, and pesticide-free. 2 medium, very ripe organic bananas, fair trade, purchased at Frogtown Community Co-op. 2 tablespoons Sunrise Hills brand low fructose artisanal blue agave syrup, purchased direct from manufacturer Taos, New Mexico. Pat stopped reading there. Sam chucked one of these oatcakes in his mouth. Nothing special, he said. Kind of weird. Kind of like eating a banana-flavored granola bar or something. Want one? Pat shook her head. She didn't want to know what it was like. I'll tell you this, Mom, Sam said. Dad would throw a shit fit if you served this for dessert. These ingredients, they're so specific, Pat said. These people make their own oat flour and brown sugar? It all looks the same in the toilet the next morning, Sam said. Thank God for him. A young man in tight jeans, a plaid shirt, and a bow tie walked up to Sam. Kind of a weird fashion sense, but he was smiling, and that's what counted. Hey, man, he said to Sam, you need a ballot. Oh, yeah, that's right, Sam said. We have to vote. What's your name, kid? Sam Jorgensen, he said, glancing at his mom. Oh, I'm Dylan, and that's my wife Una over there. Pointing to a happy young woman in yellow high-waisted pants standing near the DJ. Didn't those kind of pants go out of style a long time ago? Maybe they were on sale, and she was trying to save money. You brought your mom with you. That's cool. Yeah, Sam said. He could see that he was mistaken for the chef, so he tried to stay quiet. It's great to see someone so young be so serious in the kitchen. How old are you? I turn 17 next week. You gotta be the youngest person here. I had to come over and meet you. What's your specialty? Brownies. Nice. Where'd you get your ingredients? Well, the main one I grow at home. I love it, the young man said, genuinely excited. That is so awesome. Thanks. We made the raw no-bake chocolate torte over there. Number 8. What about you? You enter your brownies? No. We got peanut butter bars, number 49. Let's try them, Dylan said, waving his wife over. I'll vote for yours if you vote for mine. Sure. Get your ballots at the red table. We'll meet you at platter 49. To pass the time, Pat and Sam joined a small crowd assembled around platter number 8, that raw no-bake chocolate torte. Pat looked at the instructions. Prep time, 30 minutes. Freezer time, 2 hours. She started to read the ingredients, but stopped when she got to avocado. What is this? Pat said. How the heck can you make a cake like this? She felt all of the young people around her start to vanish, and quickly, like a bunch of parents leaving a pool that somebody's kid pooped in. And what does raw mean? Pat said. Raw cake? What does that even mean? It means that none of the ingredients were ever cooked, said a bearded older man, his sandy hair thinning, pink polo shirt buttoned to the top. Sometimes the kitchens that make raw food don't even have hot running water. Hey, a female voice called out, and Pat, Sam, and the bearded man all turned to see Una and Dylan waving at them from platter number 49. Come over here. Pat and Sam made their way across the room, where Una had a big smile on her face. Wow, guys, what's in these? They're amazing. They totally taste like the real thing. Sam looked at his mom. What's in them? Butter, Pat said. Powdered sugar, peanut butter, milk chocolate chips, graham crackers. Dylan and Una stared back. Butter? Like, what kind of butter? Almond butter? No, regular milk butter, like from cows. Hormone-free cows? I don't know. It was Land O'Lakes butter. It's what was on sale. Oh, Dylan said. Does their milk have bovine growth? Does their milk have bovine growth hormone? Una asked Dylan. I don't know, but I think they're on the list. Are you thinking about the baby? I don't know. Do you think I should go vomit it up? I don't know. What's worse, the bile and the stomach acids? Pat couldn't believe what she was hearing. She felt like a pilot flying through clouds. You couldn't see anything. On purpose? You're going to vomit up my bars? Una, face pinched, glared at Pat and Sam. Are you trying to trick people or something? By not having an ingredients card? It's not funny. People have serious allergies and dietary preferences and things. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't even know you were carrying, Pat said. It's true, Una didn't appear to be showing at all. Cow's milk is really bad, especially for children. It's full of hormones and toxins. Pat looked at Sam. Well, I ate these same bars almost every month I was pregnant with him, and he turned out okay. But that was your choice, Una said. It's not mine. You have to care about what people put in their bodies. You can't just blindly feed these to pregnant people. I'm sorry, Pat said, her voice wavering. She was not raised to confront people or defend herself in confrontation. She was raised to appease, to mollify, to calm, to tuck little monsters in at night, to apologize for things that she screwed up without knowing, to forgive, to sweeten in her bars. Her bars did that for the world. They were her I'm sorry. They were her like me. They were her love freely given. By now, everyone near them at this Petite Noisette affair, having either overheard Pat's devastating confrontation with Una and Dylan or been made aware of it, quickly created a pocket of isolation around Pat and Sam in platter number 49. Now, gone was the hope of the prize of $5,000. Gone was the job in the cities and the trip to Spain, the dance lessons with Rodrigo. Pat had overreached. She had fallen prey to temptation, and her greed and selfishness had led her to desires that brought her to this sinful place. Her family, God was telling her, was all that mattered, not the judgment of these people and their awful food. She suddenly felt sorry for these people, for perverting the food of their mothers and grandmothers and rejecting its unconditional love in favor of what? What? Pat didn't understand. She stepped forward towards platter number 8, parting the crowd where she walked. How can you eat these raw cakes and things? She said, loud enough to be heard over the music. You weren't raised on these things. None of you were. You were raised on good desserts, not on this crap. Mom, can we go? Sam said. Pat looked around at the crowd. Most were too embarrassed to look back at her. Tell me, she said, who doesn't like bars? 2 burly men in dark clothes walked towards Pat and Sam. They had an expression on their face that said, please make this easy on yourself, ma'am. Mom, Sam said. Who doesn't like bars? Pat said. Who doesn't like bars? How are we for time?
Thank you so much, J.Ryan Stradal. So what did you say?
I said, how are we for time?
We have to stop.
Okay.
But I will suggest that, you have the possibility to talk to Ryan when he's going to sign the book. I would like to thank very much also the Buchhandlung Volkshaus, who is going to sell the books. And I think we all need some some bar from Pat right now to sweeten our life a little bit.
We could all use some comfort food, yes.
Yeah, definitely. So we can all, and comfort food is also what you talk about in your book, and the bank has prepared 2 special dishes out of the book, französische Zwiebelsuppe und Mams Hähnchen Wildreis Auflauf. You can try, and Ryan will be happy to answer your questions later. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah. Hey, no problem. No. Oh, hey, no, that was right where I was planning to end anyway. I could sense that part was going a little.